Good morning, happy Friday, and welcome to the third episode of the Find Your Place podcast with Bianca and Jess. Before we get started with this episode, we did want to give a big shout out to everyone who has been supporting us thus far, sending us all their words of encouragement. We are so excited to be here with you all, and thank you for joining us on this new venture. So last week was our second episode, and we had the incredible Kate Broddick here, who I call the Super Mama Realtor. And we spoke all things real estate, work ethic, burnout, realignment, and goal setting. And this week, Bianca and I are so excited to have two very special guests with us who came all the way from Cambridge to join us this morning. One of them is a trailblazer in his industry. He is a well-respected leader in his community and an overall incredible and humble friend and mentor. And did I forget to mention the number one RE/MAX agent in Canada? Woo! We are so happy to have Faisal Susiwala here and his son, Yusuf. And they're joining us today for our third episode. We are so happy to have you here. So a warm welcome to you both from Bianca and I and from our viewers and listeners.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
We're so excited to have you on. We've both read your book. I'm gonna plug that in right away. Let's plug in this book, The Real Deal, right away. Faisal was just telling me that a lot of the time when people ask him questions now, he just hands them the book.
All the answers are in the book.
That's right.
Saves us a little bit of time, right?
Awesome. So I would want to start off by saying, Bianca and I both have read your book. We've also listened to the Audible version of it. And in our honest opinions, we think that you are an example of someone who is super resilient, who is a forward thinker, also super innovative, and also someone who takes life, what's that saying? A bull by their horns? Is that the saying? The English thing?
I like to say
right?
by the balls.
Yeah.
By the horns, whatever.
Yeah.
Someone who essentially has a vision and really moves forward with that vision in mind. And it's clear because you've created a life that you've really wanted for yourself. And this morning when I jumped on Instagram right before we got here, I saw you posted something on Instagram. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you wrote, "It all starts with a dream." Right?
Absolutely.
So it all starts with a dream. And for some people, it could be vision, it could be dream, goal, whatever it is, whichever way we want to interpret it. But it does all start with a dream. And I think you've created the life that you've wanted for yourself. So we're so happy to have you here because our listeners and viewers are in for a treat. You've got a lot to share. And we're happy to have you here because, yes, people can read the book, but now they can hear from you as well. So I would like to start off by asking you, is there a quote or a mantra that you live by which has helped you get to where you are in life?
So when I first started in the business, I met a very wonderful man by the name of Reed Maneri. And the first statement he made to me is what I've always lived by. And that is, do a good job, do the right thing, and the money will come. Don't think about the money. And I've lived by that my entire life. So many times, opportunities have been there to make a lot of money on something, but I've passed that because I didn't feel it was the right thing to do or the right advice to give. And as a young person starting on the business, you've got to really think about what you're doing because you're actually investing in your own future. And it's not a flash in the pan, one-time deal. So you have to think about, if I do this knowingly that it's not the right option for this buyer or this seller, is that going to bite me later? And most of the times it will, because people will realize that the advice you gave them was the wrong advice and it was probably self-serving. So success takes a little bit longer, but it comes, and when it does, it comes in massive amounts, and that's 33 years later. I'm glad to say that I've been able to keep the majority of my past clients and third and fourth generation of the same family as a result.
Wow,
so I've invested in my future. Yeah.
Right. It's so insightful, right? To be able to start off so young with that type of ethical mindset. Right? And what a place to do it in real estate, because as you're saying, it's branding. We want to talk about a little bit about branding and this reputation that you've built, and it's through this ethical mindset, is there advice that you would give people entering the business at any age?
So you started at 18, right?
Yeah, that's young.
Were you out of high school already, or you were transitioning? You were in the stage of just wrapping up the 12th grade.
So I had finished grade 12, and I had the summer off. So, and off meaning I was always selling something. I was an entrepreneur, like just in my blood. So I was always selling T-shirts or water softeners or fake Rolex watches.
Door to door? Was that door to door?
No, it wasn't. It was. I took a commercial technique in selling this. So I'd go to car dealerships and sell car sales and people.
Oh my gosh, I was ahead of the game even then.
And we were printing T-shirts. Of course, I'm going to violate every copyright here by Gucci and Valentino, and you name it. I had that in the back of my trunk, and I was selling that.
Pioneered that, because that's still happening. Yeah,
it is.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a long time ago. My brother had the driver's license, so he would drive me. And so very early on, where were we here? I was the question again. Just repeat.
So you were high school wise.
High school,
were
grade
you
12. So I was in grade 12. I went to Conestoga College, which was a local community college, and they had a 6-week course on real estate. And I did not know that it was a licensing course. I watched late night television. Tom Vu was on, and he was with really hot babes on the back of a yacht. And I'm thinking, I want to be this guy.
Infomercial, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Of course, that guy got in a lot of trouble later on. I didn't know what he was doing, but he had fast cars, yachts, and beautiful girls on that yacht. And I'm like, I want to be this guy, right?
I'm sure there's a version of that you're seeing as well, right? Somewhere.
Yeah. No hot babes, no yachts, but yeah. So anyways, that got me into learning about real estate, because he said that he invested in real estate and became this very rich person. He was an immigrant. He couldn't speak English, and this is how he made it. I'm like, this is pretty cool. And at the end of a 6-week course, so for all of you newer people, it's
6 weeks,
6 months, a year, whatever it is. It was 6 weeks, and if you have the courses done, you have a pulse, you can become a real estate agent, right?
Yeah.
I went back to complete my OAC, which was at that time, like there was grade 13 and Ontario academic credits. Yeah. So I was finishing that, but I had a pager, and I would skip class to go show homes.
Wow.
So that was...
Parents must have loved that.
I didn't tell them I was doing
No.
that. Yeah, exactly.
What did they think at the beginning?
Oh, they were totally against it, because, first generation coming to this country to give us education. And I'm telling my mom and dad that, look, I'm not... And I had just been accepted at every university that I had applied to. And then to tell them that I'm not going to go to university and I'm doing this.
I'm going to run with a 6-week course and see where it takes me.
Exactly.
Every immigrant parent's worst nightmare.
Yeah. And real estate agents didn't have a good reputation. And I mean, to a certain extent, we're nothing against used car salespeople, but we're one notch above used car salespeople. So we have to do better. We have to prove that we are better people, and we are going to be able to add value to people, as opposed to just in it for the big bucks.
It's interesting you say that, because yesterday I was speaking to a young adult, and he was like, hey, you're a real estate agent? I was wearing my Remax pin. I said, yeah. And then he mumbles it, because he wanted to make the statement, but he didn't. He's like, well, I heard real estate agents are all liars. And I was like, oh, I hate that that's, how we're known. And perhaps maybe if the courses were affiliated with the university, it would change people's perception of realtors, right?
Yeah.
That was actually the reason why I never got it when I was 18. I wanted to get it, but I was like, same thing. A child of immigrant parents, they came here to give my brother and I a good life. And I'm going to say, no, mom and dad, I don't want to go to university, So,
absolutely.
Okay, so your parents were against it. But I remember you mentioned in your book that you had an uncle.
Yes. So my mother's uncle was a professor at Brock University, a professor of education, nonetheless, right? So
with a British accent?
With a British accent, yeah. His name was William Richard Bond. He's passed away, but he was a wonderful, wonderful
Richard
man.
Bond.
Yes, exactly. I should have got that name, yeah. So I wish I had the accent too. So he came down because, Uncle Bond was very respected by my parents, and he came down and tried to... My parents had come and talk sense into this kid, tell him, you should not, give up university, you have a bright future, this type of thing. So he came down and I said, okay. And I listened to him. And then he turned around to me and said, okay, Faisal, so are you convinced you're going to go to university, right? I said, well, no. I said, I'm making good money. And he's like, well, it's a commission job. I know a lot of realtors. They don't make a lot of money. So I had been 2 months into the business, and I had a really lucky streak where I met some investors from South Africa who chose to work with me. And the first 60 days that I was in the business, I was able to sell $2 million worth of real estate.
And that's way back when homes were not $1 million.
No, it was the average price of a home where I was $130,000. But they bought a commercial building from me, and they bought 2 blocks of townhomes in Ingersoll. So that gave me my first start. And in those days, commission for a cooperating broker, I know it's gone down a lot lately, but it used to be 3%. So here I am, an 18-year-old kid still in high school that just made $60,000 gross commission in my first 2 months. And I told him this. I mean, he looked at my mom and dad and said, this kid's making more money than I am. Let him do what he wants to do here. And he supported me, and I'll forever be grateful to him for that.
Okay, so I think a lot of us are wondering, I'm looking at Yusuf. So you're 2 years older than when your dad was when he started in the industry. Yes. Are you in the real estate game, or do you have interest in it, or did you kind of just go and do something else?
Yeah, so when I was coming out of high school, my parents kind of left it up to me. As long as I decide to get a good education, whatnot, do what makes you happy, where you think you're going to be successful. At the time, I was really interested in the medical field.
Nice.
So right now I'm in second year health sciences at Western University.
Nice.
But just through some of the courses I've been able to take and whatnot, I still have that, love for science and the medical world, but recently kind of started in taking an interest in what Dad's doing as well.
Ooh, love it.
So yeah, that's kind of, I'm kind of deciding moving forward now to use my time to, still continue along with the science and that side of things in the medical field, because that's kind of where, most of my talent lies in terms of academics.
Right.
But then within that, we can use electives to choose whatever we want. And so I'm going to start taking some, business courses as well. So that way I just have a bit more of a well-rounded education.
Of course.
And then coming out of Western, I'll be able to, make a more informed decision, maybe help Dad out a little bit. Med school. Not too sure yet. But yeah, the whole point of it is just, I've kind of realized that you can't really be tunnel visioned, right? So that's pretty much where I'm at with that, just waiting to see what happens.
So you have 2 more years left, and then at that point you'll be able to decide, right? And at that point you'll have your degree and you can decide whether you move forward.
Exactly.
But I feel like you're probably gonna start jumping more into the real estate
I must
world.
say, I'm probably the only East Indian alive that does not want his kid to be a doctor.
But still he shows of his own accord going into the medical field.
I'm in
love
full
that.
support of what my kids want to do, because look, I was very lucky that my parents didn't stand in the way of what I really felt I wanted to do. So I say this to a lot of especially immigrant parents, that there are other options. There's don't paint your kids into that box and say this is what you have to do. Give them options. And that was one of the major lessons that I had in my book for young people, was to give them that inspiration to do what they really feel, because they can be successful in whatever they want to do as long as they're happy doing what they're doing.
And as long as there's a passion. And
Absolutely.
I believe you mentioned that in your book, like you were genuinely passionate about it and were inquisitive and you wanted to know more, right? So
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, that's what drives us. Passion and curiosity.
Yeah, if you can wake up every morning and feel happy to face the day and just really ready to go out there and do what you love, it's not work at all. It's fun, and you're engaging with people. Every day is very different. You're not, behind a desk doing that same repetitive action, and that's what drives me.
Let's talk about some of the scarier times in your life. Let's talk about times where you had a sort of, I'm sure there's a few, but the ones that come to mind, where you had a bit of a wake-up call and you looked around and you went, okay, what else is there?
Yeah. So I started in 1988. 1989, we started the recession. And then came 1990. And I had, as a very young person, invested with one of my investors that were from South Africa, and I was the local Canadian resident, so the corporation was in my name, and I just basically took the commission that I was earning on that building purchase and put it back into exactly, and it was a small percentage. It was 5% of the ownership in this building.
Oh, wow.
But I wanted to get started, and I was really ambitious, and I wanted to do this, and I thought, oh, this is great. I'm partnering with these amazing people, and it was great. And unfortunate that the market started turning. We literally went down 35% in the matter of 6 months.
Wow.
So by 1990, I was about to turn 20. And we had a completely vacant commercial building. I couldn't lease it. Interest rates were high. We couldn't keep up with the payments. So at the age of 19, I filed for bankruptcy.
Wow.
And on behalf of the company, but I was a Canadian on there. And, it felt horrible.
So you took a lot of that risk. It was all the
absolutely. But, we all lost money. And that's one of the things that, I also had skin in the game. And I talk about this, that if you're in it and you're also losing it, it wasn't just because you gave someone bad advice. And look, I had no way of forecasting what was going to happen to the economy and that we were going to go into this recession. And that recession lasted almost till 2000. So it was almost a 10-year dry spell.
Yeah.
But it was interesting that those investors didn't begrudge me, were not upset with me, didn't say, oh, like we shouldn't have listened to an 18-year-old, 19. And then I had Mr. Maneri that was mentoring and overseeing things. And no one could have thought that this was going to happen. But they participated in future investments with me because they knew that, I stopped the bleeding very quickly. I didn't let them bleed out and keep investing money where a lot of people did. They kept investing. And I said, look, let's just stop this. I'll take the hit. I'll do the bankruptcy. And at least that way, you're not every month sending me money.
Did anyone guide you through the process of the bankruptcy? Like, did Mr. Maneri tell you, like, this is what it's going to look like, this is how long it's going to be, this is how it's your age, all of the pros and cons of it? Or was it more like I'm doing it?
I just did it.
Okay.
I'm very decisive when it comes to that. I make that decision and I don't look back. Right or wrong, I did what I felt I needed to do. And I would have also put my family at risk because I would have had to turn to my parents and try to put a mortgage on that home or increase the mortgage. I thought it's just not worth it because I could actually hurt my entire family by doing this, and they had taken a big chance. We had just bought a home together. So sort of multi-generational living is very common in East Indian society, and now it's sort of happening everywhere.
Yep.
And we were all feeding the same pool and trying to stay above water, and it just didn't make sense for me to continue doing that. So it was a really important lesson learned at a very early stage in my career. And from that moment on, I've been extremely cautious, but not risk adverse because I know what to look for. And I'm always forecasting and looking at trends and looking at the market, and just gives me a stronger footing when I'm investing now.
So now for your outlook on what's happening.
Yes.
Now I want to hear because we have a lot of people. We have a lot of people who are hopeful, and we have a lot of people that are freaking out.
Yes.
What do you say about this, based on all of your experience with recessions? Are we going into one?
So $1 million question, right? I don't believe we're going to go into. We are experiencing a temporary pause. I'll tell you why. There's a lot of factors that are happening right now that are having a psychological impact more than a real impact. So let's look at the fundamentals. Back in the 90s, so I've been through 3 cycles of recessions.
I was about to
right?
say,
That's why I'm like, this is important to ask.
Yeah. So back in the 90s, the problem was there was an abundance of inventory and wasn't enough population to warrant the inventory. Interest rates were high, like 13% interest rates.
It's crazy because some people can't even fathom that.
No.
That existed. That's not even in people's.
That's right. Exactly. My parents had a mortgage at 21% in the late 70s, right? So, prices were lower
different,
and whatnot, but still. So when you look at what's going on in the world right now, we have 500,000 new immigrants coming into Ontario each year, just in the Golden Horseshoe. we have a housing crisis where there's not enough homes for the population that's here. Construction cost is an all-time high. It's quadrupled in the last 2 years. So builders are not going to do charitable work and build these homes for less than their cost. So people will have to buy resale homes. They will have to come into this market and have and need that place to live. So we're going to find that this is happening. Look, gas prices are up. So commuters are saying, well, I'm not going to go into the suburbs. I'll just try to buy locally. Interest rates are going up, but so what? They're still less than pre-COVID, and they're still less than what we've been used to over the last 20 years. It's the media. So Royal Bank comes out and says, we're going to see a 25% decline in prices by the end of the year. Let me remind you that Royal Bank also said in the beginning of COVID that we're going to see a 25% decline. I'm not just picking on Royal Bank. I actually bank with Royal Bank. But all the banks are saying the same thing, that there's going to be a decline. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you keep talking about it, it's going to happen. People pause. But this is
we're not looking at the numbers, though, either. We're not looking at the fact that everything's gone up 30%, 40% year over year either, right?
Exactly. And look, okay, so we're up 62% since 2020. So what if we drop 10 points? Does that really matter? Unless you're exiting, cashing out, and never going to buy again, it doesn't matter. It's all relative. So if you're in the same market, but this is a great opportunity. So all of us who were working with buyers and had buyer fatigue and all that bad stuff that was going on, this is the time to reach out to your buyers and say, okay, here it is. There's a window of opportunity to get into the marketplace right now. Prices dropped 10 points. So what if interest rates went up? You're still in the same boat. Your cost of buying that home is still going to be exactly the same because we're a payment buyer. We're not a equity cash buyer. So your payment's going to be the same. So you're just buying that home for less money, which will still be the same payment. So don't pause right now. And, agents have become very lazy, and it was very easy to sell a home. You put up a sign and it's sold, right? So what did we all do? We stopped marketing, we stopped branding, we stopped reaching out, we stopped engaging with our people. We didn't have anything going on. Everybody just thought, like Tim Hortons drive-through, next. This is where, and times of recession, times of slowing down is where you can captivate market. And that's what I've done. The same actions that you take, you can't pause them. You can't have feast or famine in this business. It's always famine. And you've always got to live with what's going to happen tomorrow. So you can't stop branding, you can't stop marketing, you can't stop investing. As long as you keep doing that and you're consistent, you will gain the market. And that's what I did. I saw what the top producers in my market, in my region were doing, but what would they do? They would market in March, and they would stop in the summer because everybody's taking a break. They had their commission checks already in, and then Christmas was coming. So we'll just wait, and then we'll start again in March. So there would be so many pauses, as opposed to every 3 weeks, a piece of mail or something's going out to your farming area. And that's the way to stay engaged with your audience. So today we have the wonderful tools of social media. You can engage every single day by putting out content, putting out advice and updates and whatnot. And it's free. My marketing cost is down by 65%.
Wow.
Because of social media.
Right.
So I had a question on that note. So in the book you've spoken about how you still flyer to this day, right? It's been over 30 years now. So
no, I've stopped sending the flyers out now, but I was doing that on a consistent basis. And sporadically, if there's an area where, look, I'll be honest, if I see a competitor doing it, I'm going to do it 3 times more in the same area. So you can't stop. You've got to really output more in order to get that.
Right.
Okay. So then there's do you do bus benches?
Yeah. So I have 21 buses that I'm on the back of. So I'm on the back of the bus.
If you go to Cambridge, guess who you're going to see in front of you?
The little kids think I'm the bus driver, So it's awesome. Yeah.
But they'll remember you moving forward, 20 years after that.
Absolutely.
I remember who that was.
Yeah.
We should buy our house with that man on it.
The bus driver.
So the other thing is there's some things that you don't do that a lot of agents do. And we want to hear more about that. So door knocking.
Right.
Your take on door knocking, your take on
Cold
open
calling.
houses and cold calling, because this is something that we're talking, you are an anomaly in the industry talking this way. So give it to us.
So let me tell you, like door knocking, it's exhausting. I don't like rejection. I don't know many people who do. And I get it. You're not going in there saying you want to buy or sell or whatever. You're just introducing yourself. But think about this. When I come home at 6 p.m. and I'm having supper or I'm sitting at home relaxing, watching TV, whatever I'm doing, the last thing I want to do is get off my couch and go answer the door and have a salesperson introduce themselves to me. So why do I think I'm special that someone's going to want to see my face at their front door? Right? Like there's no reason for me to be there. Number two, I don't want that
You're
cold
piss
call.
off so many mentors.
But
They're like, their mentees are going to call him. And you know what he said? He said, this is, I agree with him.
Yeah. Well, like, look, 1978 call, they want their cold calls back.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
stop doing old habits. You know what your cold call is? You know what your door knock is? Is social media. Your CRM is your social media.
Yeah.
Like, people haven't evolved to understanding. Like, young people, I'm 52 years old. I'm on social media every single day. I'm engaging with my audience every single day. My CRM, my database is not a Rolodex anymore.
Yeah.
It is social media. That's where I engage. When little Johnny gets his first goal, that's where I say congratulations to little Johnny, right? And that's where you're engaging with your sphere, and that's where you're going to have a community built around. So it's community branding that you're doing when you're on social media, doing that type of thing, as opposed to let me knock on the doors. If you want to do my knocking on the door and my cold calling was my 33,000 flyers every 3 weeks in your mailbox, because I had a captive audience from the time they picked it up at the super mailbox to the recycling bin. Because you're going to look at the picture and the ad, and it goes straight into. I knew I was ending up in the recycling bin. I was not.
No hard feelings.
Not going to flatter myself thinking they're taking it in and reading it and putting it on their fridge, right? But those are the things that you've got to think about. Is like, what annoys you? Do you like being sold to? Do you like a cold call? Duct cleaners. Do you like duct cleaners calling you?
No.
So
I
why
don't.
do we think we're special?
I think that's perspective, right? Because you just said you still technically cold call and door knock, but you just do it in a different way, right? And you've been innovative. You've kind of you looked at what's working right now, and you're just jumping on that and making use of that, right? So, how much % of your business is coming from your social?
I'm up to 35% of new business comes from social media, like brand new business that I've never done before.
Just DM reaching out.
Absolutely.
Just that kind of thing. Okay.
Constantly. And then another 30 to 35% is my past clientele that's reaching out. So I'm 65% of my business is done on social media. And that's such a huge number. And the cost, virtually zero.
Yeah.
Right? Other than the pay-per-click ads and that type of thing that you're doing for your listings, you can't beat that. And the shares and the engagement that I'm getting on that. I'm guilty of not doing more videos because that is where really you can have that.
Headed.
You're here today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks. I haven't figured out how to do TikTok without looking silly.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
You said help them out.
I got to step in there on that one.
Yeah, that's right.
Are you good at social media and other stuff? Are you on there a lot?
Me, I use social media more just for personal though. I don't do any type of marketing or anything like that over social media. But yeah, I'm on TikTok and Instagram. Snapchat's still pretty big with my age group. So I'm somewhat around the social realm with it.
I'm sure you could pick it up so quickly.
Snapchat still?
I do, yeah.
Oh my god!
I do.
Oh no! I better get back on
Too old.
Snapchat. Oh no!
Do you know what Snapchat is?
Yes, I know.
No,
I don't know. I assume you don't have
I'm
Snapchat.
52. I'm not dead.
I don't know. Like, my parents know what TikTok is, but Snapchat, they're like, we can't keep up with all of your apps.
My mom would be like, "What is the Snapchat and the TikTok? I don't understand TikTok. What is it?" She wouldn't get it.
I love when you pretend to be
when
your mom.
when I give my mom accent.
So we're talking about branding and advertising and all that, and so I think a lot of the newer realtors, we've been spoiled. Like we don't have to spend money on flyers and stuff. So I'm just wondering, just point of reference, how much were you spending initially if you were sending out flyers for the whole year?
So I would have 300,000 or 360,000 flyers printed at once. So the cost per flyer was probably, I think, around 3.5 to 4 cents per piece, but I was using Canada Post for my delivery because that's, you're not giving it to a kid. I used to be a newspaper kid, so I know what newspaper kids used to do.
Yeah. You just
right?
throw those things out, right?
Yeah,
In the garbage,
exactly.
right? In the garbage.
So by putting it through Canada Post, it, depending on which company you're with, they have accounts with, the large brands have accounts with Canada Post. So it was 11 cents a piece. So, you're 15 cents per piece times, let's say 30,000. Mm-hmm. So it's a big expense to get that piece out there. But if you look at the ROI on that, the return on that, if you get one listing out of that, that covers that, and you're going to get more.
Right.
But it's consistency.
Can't just send it out once.
Exactly. And like there's a branding company that had years ago that I read somewhere that someone needs to see your name or your face 11 times before they'll actually remember you. Now, you're lucky if you've got a name like Bianca or Faisal or Yusuf, not so much Jessica, where it's a unique name.
Yeah.
So use that to your advantage, right? And that people will remember foreign names or something unique about you more than they will if you're Bill Smith.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a big one.
That's true. That's true. And so now you've kind of moved over to the social aspect of it. I mean, this is how Faisal ended up being here. We connected over social. I mean, I did hear about him when we were in Vegas for the Remax convention. Nice. One of my colleagues, Vadim, came up to me and he's like, do you know what that is? You need to go buy his book. I'm like, okay, I'm on it. Got the book, and then we connected via social media, and then, now you're sitting here. So there is a lot of power in that for sure.
In social media.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was reading that you got into development.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the process, the transition from selling residential homes to wanting to get into, and then what's beyond that. I'm sure you're already thinking about other things beyond development. What's there?
So, we have a real estate license, but we haven't figured out how to monetize that license. So there's so much you can do with your license. You could be a property manager, you could be a mentor, you could be a coach, you could be an author, you could be a team leader. There's so many different aspects, but you could also be a partner, and you can bring opportunities to larger groups and start participating in those investments. And we talk about having skin in the game. So how much confidence will an investor have when you say, hey, let's talk small scale. If you're selling a condo project, that I've already bought a unit, or I'm buying a unit and I'm in phase one and I'm getting in at this price and you're coming in at the same price as I am. Now, with me, I always had this desire to develop. And to build things and had a vision, and I would see a piece of land, and especially in an area like Cambridge where I grew up, I could see a piece of land and say, this would be really good for a plaza, or this would be really good for. I'm not a commercial agent at all, but I had these. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with a vision that this is something that I want to build. And I would actually execute that the next day. And I would come up with different ideas, and then I would call people that I thought could partner with me, because I couldn't do it alone, especially in my earlier years. And some of my partners have been with me for over 20 years.
That very first plaza that you got going.
That's what I want to ask about.
That's the crazy one, right? That is a real story of resilience and persistence that I want to hear about.
Yeah.
I want to tell her
till the very last minute.
So Yusuf was, I think, a year old, and we were in Montreal, and I had been trying to buy this parcel of land for a long time, but the owner wouldn't sell me the whole 4 acres. It was just 2 acres, and at that time he wanted $500,000 for the 2 acres. And it was in Montreal, and I think it was Christmas Eve, and I hop onto the internet, and this listing shows up. So I call the agent that night, and I said, "Listen, is this all the 4 acres?" He goes, "Yeah." The gentleman passed away, unfortunately, and the wife said, "Just sell the whole thing." And they were asking, I think, $550 for all of it.
Wow.
I didn't have that kind of money. This was back in 2003. So I called a friend of mine who was a doctor. He had just come to Canada, and his father was a doctor. And I said, "Guys, you guys gotta consider this." And he says, "Well, I'm just still paying off debt and all this kind of stuff." And the dad said, "I've got 3 kids in med school. I don't have a lot of money." I said, "Okay, well, you come up with whatever you can." and I'll figure out the rest of it. And I borrowed everywhere I could to buy this land, and we bought it for $535,000, and it was 4 acres. So I got part of it rezoned for a plaza, and then I got the other half rezoned for a residential townhome development. And the city planners just looked at me and said, "You're nuts! Like this is commercial."
Especially
land.
because we're in this is Cambridge, right? So
Yeah.
this is quite a while ago, right? This is before anybody had any true foresight of
That's
how
right.
what Cambridge would turn out to be.
And it was in the very south end where we were surrounded by farms. Like there was nothing there. And everybody's looking at me saying, "You're nuts. Like, what are you doing here?" And now I didn't develop it till 2007. So bought it in 2003, sat on it for 4 years. Then Empire Communities came in and bought everything around me. And I was the only commercial land there. That's when I went to the city and I said, okay, I want to build a plaza. I want to put 5 apartments above it. And the reason I wanted the apartments, because I had learned from my bankruptcy at the age of 19 that commercial tenants can all move out on you. But if I have residential, at least I'll be able to make my mortgage payments. And when I went there, they said, no, we're not going to support this. And this is before there was this movement for intensification and the need for housing and affordable housing. And that was my argument. I said, well, people got to live here. Like this is going to be an affordable building with apartments above it. Severed off the 2 acres. Anyways, we got the approval. 2007, we started building this plaza. And
how did you get to start building the plaza? Since you likely, did you have all the money for it?
No, zero. I had zero. A hope and a prayer.
And a vision.
And a vision. So I went to the bank and they like, no, you don't have
you have
income.
land. This is just land,
Yeah,
raw land.
Raw land. Yeah, not serviced even.
Okay.
So I found a commercial builder, and the deal I made with him was, I'll tell you what, I'll sign over the land to you. You build this out. I'm going to work really hard to get this thing leased. And by the end of and this was the beginning of 2007, by the end of 2007, I will get takeout financing because I'll have the whole plaza leased, and you'll give me the keys and take the lien off of the land. But if I don't,
you get to keep the land.
You're already putting your money in there to build it for me.
Yeah.
I've signed over the land to you, so you've got nothing to lose. And they agreed.
So when you had nothing and no other way of being able to build this, you found this way. Isn't that extraordinary?
Yeah,
That's so
because
extraordinary.
not many people would.
Yeah, they'd
would
look
move
around and be like,
forward
oh
with it.
crap, I got to go try to get more loans or sell more properties or make more money or sell this thing. Like I've reached a dead end. What do I do? And you literally went and you found a builder and you exchanged a service. That is incredible.
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
And that's what you have to do is come up with creative ways to make things happen. Now I leased it all out. It was great. Got the apartments leased out as well, except I couldn't get occupancy. And I write about this in the book. And I went to the city and said, okay. And the only way for me to get my money from the bank to pay the builder, who had a deadline of December 31st, was to get the financing. So December 15th, 18th, still no occupancy. Finally, I get to the point where we can get occupancy, and the city inspector says that you don't have a connected fire detection monitoring system yet. I'm like,
What's
what?
that?
Yeah.
What
It's everything's in here. Well, he goes, yeah, unless you have this monitored.
Did the builder miss that? Was that?
No, it was all there, but because of the Christmas holidays, it was now we were at the 23rd.
Yeah.
City Hall's closing at 3
Things
p.m.
closed, yeah.
My advance is ready from the bank, provided I have occupancy permit. I can't get occupancy permit because I have residential apartments upstairs. So now I'm in a real problem here. I'm like, well, what does that mean? He goes, well, you have to have somebody monitor because if there's a fire, the alarm's got to go off. I said, well, that's not going to happen. Like, I can't get these guys in to connect even right now. It's 3 p.m. and it's about to be Christmas Eve. So,
Everyone listen very closely to what happens next.
So they said to me, well, unless you, then the planner was nice enough to say, the city planner was nice enough to say to me, well, you might be able to get a security company to come in and, sit there all night until you get your alarm connected to a monitoring company. And I said, well, where am I going to find this? So I started calling security. And of course, at the last minute, you can't get a security service to come there. So I call him back and I said, okay, does it have to be a licensed security service? He goes, no. I said, like, what if I'm there? He goes, well, like, where are you going to live? I said, well, there's an empty apartment. What if I live there? He goes, well, you understand that we have bylaw people that are going to check up on you to make sure that, so you can't, like, you've got to be there 24/7. So from Christmas Eve to the 27th, I got a sleeping bag and I stayed there so that I could get occupancy permits, so that I could get my money, so I could pay the builder so he doesn't take my land away from me and my plaza away from me.
And
that's
you were too young to remember Dad wasn't there for Christmas.
That's right. Exactly. Daddy wasn't there.
Yeah, it's fine.
I just remember playing in the dirt when it was getting good.
Exactly.
Good memories only.
But that was the only way for me to get occupancy
amazing.
permit.
Yeah, that's a true story of someone who, was able to, he was very resilient, sacrificed a lot. And
we need to actually make clear as well, because people hear these stories all the time. People who are younger, they hear these stories and and actually it's the same mindset of sort of millennials or younger people getting into real estate now, going, yes, it's easy to talk like that, Grandpa. When I was your age, I bought a house for $60,000 and I can't do it now. But the thing is that there are people who are looking at this situation, this story, and thinking, well, that was a different time. You bought land for that much. You can't buy land for that much. But that is a lie, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There is a lot more opportunity out there in a very similar fashion to exactly what you went through. And there's so much untapped potential in surrounding areas. So if you're out there and you're hearing these stories and you're a young person who wants to get into development and has that dream as a realtor or as just a regular person,
you gotta take a chance. You have to take a chance. And for me, I started with zero, so the only way was up. Right? It wasn't that. What did I have to lose, really? In that moment, I had a lot to lose. But what did I have to lose by getting a builder on side? And okay, I would have lost the land. I would have risked, over $500,000.
But the alternative was.
Well, there was.
It would have sat there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So you made this really good decision.
Yes,
right?
absolutely. And we kept half an acre vacant on that plaza because we were going to do a standalone pad site. And of course, I went back to the city a year ago and I said, you know what? There's a housing need here, so let's build 10 stacked townhomes. And then again, they said, you're crazy. Like, why would you? You're going to build 10 stacked homes on a plaza site? I'm like, yeah, just behind. And I'm not severing it off. I'm keeping it as a rental property. And we finally got permit on that. And we're starting to dig at the end of the month. Yeah.
Holy cow.
That's
one of your first properties that you're digging now.
I'm still developing on it.
Wow.
Yeah, still developing on it.
What
time
a
and
great
patience.
decision.
Ooh, time and patience. Love it.
Exactly. And sometimes, with land especially, it pays to wait. It pays to wait because there's not any of it being created right now.
How would you what type of criteria would you use when looking for land today and good deals and potential?
It's becoming very difficult right now, but don't buy in a location where it's the hot spot today. Buy where it's going to be the hot spot in the next 7 to 10 years. So you have to play the long game when it's land, and you have to vision as to, and you have to know municipal bylaws. You need to know what the official plan is. You need to know where the services are. So if your water and sewer is 20 miles away, it's probably going to be more than 10 years before you're going to see development happen there. But if it's around the corner, but it just hasn't made it up to your site yet, which in my case, most of the lands that I've purchased have done that. And I've been buying land since, like I said, the early 2000s, and we still haven't developed most of it.
Wow.
Because we're just waiting. And buy in areas that, I stumbled across 30 acres of land, a farmer's field in Fergus about 6 years ago. And that has gone 10 times the value as a result of this urban sprawl movement where, Guelph is now moving towards Fergus. Nobody thought about going to Fergus. Nobody thought about going to Woodstock or Ingersoll or Tillsonburg. And land was extremely cheap. So syndications, partner with people. If you have 5 investors that can come in and invest with you, and this is what I talk about monetizing. You're not just salespeople. We are also investors. And that's where you monetize your license. Use your license for other things that are going to give you growth and give you, I talk about a Lexit strategy, which is leveraging your exit. So when you want to leave the business at some point, you don't really need to leave the business because you're going to leverage everything you're doing up to that point and how you can realtors really don't have an exit strategy for the most part.
There's that running joke saying that I've been to a lot of realtor funerals, but not a lot of retirement parties.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you can build your brand up and you can build your business up to a point that you actually have something that's saleable at the end. Insurance people have a book of business. They sell that book of business. What do realtors have? They have a goodbye party and go to Florida and put the white shoes on and we're
Well,
done.
wait, do they? Hold on. What about realtors' books of business? Has that been tapped yet? Does anyone sell those? How does that work?
It's a very difficult model, right? Like you may have a client. I've had clients that I've had for 10 years and I'm as good as the next person that offers them 1% off more than I do.
Yeah.
So what's keeping them with you? But if you can build a system and you can build a proper model and a proper brand, your phone number is your brand. My phone number is 519-624-5555. Do you think I can sell that number? Absolutely. Because I've had 30 years of clients calling that number. So when I decide to retire, I'm going to sell it. My website, my Instagram page, my social media platforms, my entire system, my network is monetizable. And that's what we have to create as realtors, because otherwise you're just retiring and checking out.
So you mentioned the system, and I think this is a really important part of your book. So tell us a little bit more about this system and how you came about creating the system and what it has provided you.
So I start the system by saying everything you've been taught in real estate is wrong. And it's true. It is wrong because it's old school. I've listened to coaches and keynote speakers go up and I'm thinking like, you haven't sold a house in 30 years. What are you talking about? Like, have you been in the trenches, right? So the system talks about scaling down, which is don't look at a geographical location and say, I want to be everywhere. I started with 300 homes. I increased to 33,000 homes, but I scaled down. I didn't say I want to be everywhere. And I became known in that area. You need to become synonymous with the industry that you're in. So your brand will do that. Then you get benches and billboards and buses. And I use a 20% factor. 20% of my gross income in the earlier years was going towards marketing. I was reinvesting. And the example I give is if you open up a clothing store, a variety store, whatever, you've got to buy inventory. You've got to stock your shelves. Your marketing is stocking your shelves. We have billions of dollars worth of inventory that we don't have to buy. You open up a car lot, you got to go buy those cars, and then you've got to sell those cars. We have billions of dollars worth of free inventory. How do you get people to come to your lot? Through your branding, through your marketing. So that's where you need to invest your money. And if you're not investing, people don't do that. I talk about don't door knock, don't exhaust, don't do anything that's going to make you hate this business.
Yeah.
Do the things that make you love this business.
I'm glad that I got your book so early in the game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was starting to get there a little bit with the frustration with the traditional methods.
Yeah. And then I talk about multi-level partnering.
Yes.
So multi-level partnering, we talk about on an investment side for one, which we've just talked about. The other is multi-level partnering within your industry. So I do not have a team. I sell over 400 homes without having a team. I refer buyers out. I work on my own listings. Somebody calls for me. I show up at their door. Whether it's a lease or a $5 million home or a $300,000 home. They called for me, they're going to get me.
Yep.
I have 3 full-time unlicensed staff that manages my entire business, so I can show up and do what I do because I'm useless at everything else. But that's what I can do, right? I can sell, I can engage, I can talk with my clients, and everything else that I'm not. You can have 30 listings. You cannot have 30 buyers. So my model is based around how to capture the listings and then how to be a lead generator for a network. So if I was referring somebody to the Niagara area, I would call you and you would give me a referral fee for that. So I do that in my local market. I have 5 agents that I'm referring to constantly, but they're not restricted from branding themselves. So it's a place of abundance that I'm coming from, saying, look, I've got a lot coming in.
Yeah.
I can't deal with it. I'm going to share it with you, help you grow your business. And I've had agents that have been with me for 9, 10 years they've got their own buses, they've got their own billboards, they've got their own marketing. They're not restricted. I want them to grow. I want them to grow to a point where their plate is full. So then I can get someone new, fresh, young, hungry, ambitious, ready to go, and then help. And every time they do a transaction, I'm sharing in that as well. So that's the model that I've created, and it doesn't have any resistance, and there's nobody with their hand out saying, when's my next lead coming, or why am I giving you 50% on my best friend's deal, or my uncle's deal? Like, why am I sharing with you?
These are all problems in an industry of teams, for sure.
Yeah. And you know, like I don't want to come across being negative towards team, because some team models work very well. It hasn't worked for me. I have this philosophy: if you call me, I'll show up. And people are often surprised, but showing up is 80% of my win.
Yeah.
Because every other top agent didn't show up at that listing appointment, and I did. And that right there shows them that I'm going to be on their side, on their team. And I tell them, look, here's my number, here's my email. You can call me, text me for the next week, because that's how quickly we've been selling homes.
Yep.
I will be a part of your family, and we're going to be partners. And
I love
you
when
will
you use
have
that
me.
line. Just use that line on me, and I'm like, I'll sign. Where do I sign? Yeah, that's great.
Exactly.
For next week, because that's how fast we're going to sell your home.
Yes. And my entire listing presentation revolves around taking someone through a journey, not selling on them. I don't wait for them to ask what my commission rate is. I talk about it. We're having a conversation, but I'm using NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, right? So what I'm doing by that is, when I come into their home, I'm not sitting down. The first tendency is, let's sit down, let's talk. Why? I want to be out of here in 45 minutes. I don't want to sit down and chat. So we tour the home. We're looking, but I'm learning their behavior. I'm learning what their triggers are, and are they really excited about their home? Are they gonna? And they're gonna. And that conversation is what warms them up to working with me. I'm not waiting for them to ask me what the commission is going to be. I'm never asking them, what do you think your home is worth? You know how many agents ask that question when they go and sit down? You guys don't. I hope you don't. But when you
no,
say
but I've definitely seen that after all this information you've been presented with.
I mean, if you honestly look at any guru or YouTube style video that talks about listing presentation, even, okay, I'm not going to name brands, but yeah, they all say this. They all say.
Yeah. So there's like, and I'm thinking, well, and I say this to other agents, well, what the heck are you there for? Like, if they already knew what their home was worth. So if you can show them examples, and then I show them the marketing and how I'm going to leverage my brand to get the audience, where I'm going to market, who the people are going to be that are going to come. And then I take them on that presentation journey of when the offers come. So they're so excited about that whole process. They're not even thinking about, well, did you mention the walkout basement? And we're not talking about stuff like that. Yeah. That all happens later. But I show up completely prepared. The listing is already ready in hard copy, and I have it loaded on DocuSign as well, so that if they don't sign in that moment, it's ready to go. And I don't close. So never be closing is my motto. Not ABC, it's NBC. Yep. So I start packing up at the end of my presentation, and I say, you will never hear from me again unless you choose to call me. I'll respect your privacy. Yep. And they're like, we already signed.
Where are you going?
Where are you going?
We're not
exactly.
done.
So that's my close.
Yeah.
Like that, you'll never hear from me again. So make them feel insecure.
It's kind of like you want what you can't have, right?
Exactly.
So you're literally telling them, like, hey, I don't need your business. Let me know.
But I'm saying it in a way that, like, I'm not here to pressure them into making a decision, that they know the decision they wish to make and what they, and I tell them, look, I'm not going to be the discount realtor that you might be expecting. My rate is 5%.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not discounting that, because we've already discounted from 6%. Our market has gone down. Right. We're down to, agents are charging 3%.
Yeah.
So I'm not, but I'm showing them why I'm going to bring value to them and how I'm going to get them better results by marketing in areas that traditional realtors are not going to do. And I'm not just putting up a sign and going home and praying every night that your home is going to sell. I'm going to actually do the work that's required.
What do you say about the current market situation where, when you do come into a listing presentation, you used to have pretty decent comparables that would give them a very good idea of what their home is worth. And since this sort of chaos that's been happening, we have a home that sold next door for 1.3, and then the one right beside it, exactly the same, just sold for 950. So how do you reconcile that? What do you talk about when it comes to that?
You have to speak in real time, right? So what I was telling my clients in February now,
it changes month to month now,
or week to week, even, right? So everybody that I met, and I'll do 3 to 5 CMAs a day, evaluations a day. I will go back to each of them every week and give them a market update. It's an email, just an email letting them know, hey, the market has changed. And that's actually says the subject is the market has changed. So they're going to read that. And here's the latest update, good or bad. And I've been doing that for years. And we're also, that's one of our contact methods. It's letting our clients know at least every 6 months, everybody in our database gets an update on what the value of their home is in today's market. And that way, again, it doesn't need to be, I don't show up on the closing day with a big gift basket, but I'm going to stay in touch with you and I'm going to give you something every single year. And that's where the community branding comes in. And I talked about that. It's that, once you get to a point where it's literally impossible for me to get to 7,000 of my clients every year or whatever. So I have to do something on a larger scale, whether it's a charitable event or a festive event or something, because you can't house 7,000 people. And that's sort of the goal that I had from day one, is to give back to the communities that I'm working with, as opposed to individually trying, because everybody else, they're going to forget the bottle of wine you gave them on the day of closing, but they won't forget the annual things that you do for them and for the community.
The experiences. Yeah. So you just mentioned goal, and that reminded me there was something I wanted to talk to you about. What goal were you driven by when you just got into the industry? And I assume that has changed over time, right? It's been over 30 years. Was there a really big goal that you were driven by that really led you to keep persevering and keep pushing through?
It was the fear, and it was, I don't want to be poor, and I don't ever want to worry about money. So for me, it was, how do I do that without compromising ethics and all that? And like I said, being a young person in the industry, you could meet the wrong people and pick up wrong habits. And that's where mentoring is so important, and getting the right people on your side and learning from the right people is very important. But for me, it was just, I wanted to create a beautiful life for me and my family. And initially the goal was to help my parents, because my father went through a tragic accident when we were only 3 years into this country, and he lost his right arm, and my mom would walk to work, and we saw the struggles of our parents, and we wanted, my brother, myself, my sister.
You were 3 siblings.
My brother's a year older than I am. My sister's 5 years younger than me. But it was, those struggles, actually you build muscle memory, and it helps you sort of deal with things and cope with things as you feel face adversity in your life. But it also gives you the motivation and ambition that I want a life not only to make my life better, but to help my parents. So that was a big motivator for me. I would have gladly gone to university had my parents been in a position to be able to pay for everything and buy us cars and do all those things.
Without question.
But that wasn't an option back then. And my brother had just gone to university. My sister was following behind. And I saw an opportunity where I could help my family come out of this cycle of just paycheck to paycheck.
You were able to see that rather quickly too, right? The 2 months into it was such a great indicator that was the way to go.
Yes.
Right.
Of course, it didn't last very long, but it was, then the recession hit.
The initial result was there, right?
Yeah.
So
and I questioned my decisions for the first 5 years.
Yeah.
I like, should I be doing this? Should I just maybe go get a job?
That's every realtor. Welcome to every realtor's morning coffee thoughts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where you start second guessing. It's like, I should have had a degree. I should have had something to fall back on. Like what am I going to do? So, and then that's your Uber didn't exist then. I didn't have Uber as a chance.
There were no backups.
I think you had mentioned that you didn't even have a car when you first got into the industry, right?
So for my first, when I got my license, my friend Jeremy, his dad owned the Century 21 in town. So after school, I asked Jeremy said to me, go see my dad. So I walked from school downtown to go see Jeremy's father at Century 21. And he looked at me and said, son, you look like you're 12. Just go to school, get a degree, and then come see me in 4 or 5 years and we'll help you out. And so I was waiting for the bus at the bus terminal. And that's when I remembered that Mr. Maneri had an office across the bus terminal just above the old Royal Trust Bank. And I thought, I wonder if he's still there, because my dad would take us up there when we were looking for apartments to rent. And so I walk up and I see his name on the door and knock on it. And there's Mr. Maneri sitting behind the big oak desk. And I said, hi, it's, Faisal, I'm Sikandar's son. And he remembered my dad and he invited me to walk in. He was 74 at the time.
74. And you were 18 or 19?
I was 18. 18.
Wow.
And I had qualified for, I didn't have my license because you needed a broker. So I said, Mr.
The
Maneri.
articling. There was the
right.
articling back then.
Well, there was no articling. It was just you had to be under a broker.
Yes.
So I had my courses done, but a broker had to license you through Ministry of Consumer and Commercial Relations. RICO didn't exist back then. And he said, well, I'm about to retire in a few months, but yeah, sure, but as long as you come in here after school every day. So after school, I'd walk down. And then when I had an appointment, I would ask my mom to borrow her car if I could get a hold of her, because we didn't have cell phones back then.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Oh.
Pagers? What were they?
Pagers and a phone, a car phone.
And the pager was, it was a voice. So it would go beep, beep. And then the voice would, and my mom would be giving me her grocery list or something, right? So it was different times. But I did save up enough money to go out and buy a car, which I did, and convinced Mr. Maneri to buy me a car phone. It was a GE car phone. It had a speaker, like I had a microphone like this off the visor, and it was in the car, and it came with this.
People talk about you know, it's like it's so far and wild, right?
I can't even imagine.
Yusuf's like, what?
And it had a briefcase that had another charger in it, and it was with Cantel. That was my provider. It was $1.50 a minute.
A minute
to be on the phone. There was no text messaging, of course. It was just $1.50 a minute, and my monthly bill would be $700 to $800.
But imagine what a trailblazer he was. That in a time where people would respond within 24 hours, 48 hours, even.
Yes, you had to go to the office and get the little pink slip that with your name on it, and then you'd call. So imagine somebody would call my pager, and within minutes I'd be on that phone calling them back, and they're like, wow, we just how did you, we were expecting, because 24 hours was reasonable. Not anymore, but 24 hours was reasonable to get back to people.
Well, that still stands true today. Like when you get internet leads coming in.
Yeah, if you don't call them within 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah. So you were already innovating. You're like, all right, I got to move forward. I got to be 5 steps ahead.
Have you ever read The Alchemist?
No, I haven't.
Your life is a modern day version of The Alchemist.
Interesting. I better
go out and buy that book. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
We'll send one your way.
Yeah.
So Yusuf, yourself, do you have any goals that you're really driven by, or something that really sets your soul on fire?
Yeah, for starters, see how hard dad works day in and day out. You see the ups and the downs, from a personal and a business perspective. So for me, I kind of want to just aim for the same thing, be able to make a name for myself as well, get that education, get a degree, keep my marks up. Fortunately enough, I don't have the fear of, poverty and having to worry about a paycheck. But, on my own, I'm able to do different things that can kind of drive me to get towards those same goals. So for me, it's graduating every year with honors, or
nice.
So I like to set little goals along the way. And then I'm still holding off a little bit on what the ultimate one is.
That puts you ahead of the rest of us, to be honest with you.
So I just set little goals along the way. Whether that comes to marks on exams or extracurriculars, how I'm getting involved, how I handle myself around people. And then, so then that's just how I kind of go day to day. And then eventually that adds up to, what I hope to be my own version of success.
Beautiful. How do you, this is, I guess, a question to all of us. You mentioned success, and I think that's huge. I think we all measure success in a very, very different way. To some, success means having X amount of money in the bank account. To others, it could be being a great person. Like you mentioned, the way, you carry yourself with people, how people feel after they leave, having a conversation with you. So I guess this is a question to all of us. How do you measure success? Faisal, we'll start with you, and then we'll go around.
For me, it's the peace you feel at the end of the day. That's how and that's the happiness and the peace you have in your heart. And as long as the people around you are happy, peaceful, healthy, and fulfilled, and if you feel fulfilled, then you're successful. And I've always celebrated the small wins, so that when I've got a loss, I've got something to look back on and not get hung up on that loss. So for me, it's just having fulfillment and a happy life is success.
Beautiful. Yusuf?
Yeah, I pick up on what my dad said about the little wins. Like,
I noticed that as well.
yeah, like, for me, like I said, I'm still a full-time student. Sometimes that means staying at the library till 2 a.m. and studying, pulling the all-nighters and stuff like that.
You're gonna miss those days. You don't think you might, but you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like for me, it's again like I kind of agree with the whole celebrating the little wins part. Like for me, I've struggled with burnout, anxiety, mental health. So I learned to appreciate some of the wins, especially when you kind of had to go through a little more than you were hoping to get to them. But yeah, to add to that, your question about success, a good friend of ours actually kind of taught me this, is there's 3 components to it. The first is doing well. So, that means sustaining an income at a level at which you're okay with your lifestyle, you're cool with how you're living, you're totally satisfied. Second component being doing good. So, like my dad was talking about, around the community, doing good for others around you. And then as long as you're doing those first 2 with a passion, then you're pretty much you're successful in life at that point. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I live my version of wanting to be successful.
I love that. You have a very wise son, such a young age, but Bianca.
It's actually there's a thing that you guys both have in common, and there's a bravery about speaking about the things that people don't usually speak about. So for you, it was the driver behind success. A lot of people don't say fear because it's a taboo thing to say. I was scared shitless that I was going to be poor. Like that is, and some people, the way that they say it, I really wanted to do this, enter positive spin on whatever it is, that takes courageousness. And then so does being able to admit, even as a teenager, that there's anxiety and there's burnout and there's shit that you're dealing with
all the time,
the time, right? And people your age are dealing with it all the time, and they're not alone. So
it's a mass problem, especially with COVID.
Yeah,
you see it around universities, like when you look at the statistics even of people who've been seeking out like mental health supports and counseling services, it's skyrocketed since online school, because there's no structure to your life at that point. It's you're figuring out, and for our age up until high school and stuff, it was all about, okay, here's what you do every day,
and structure.
There's a lot of structure in life. And then we got thrown into online school, learning how to use all these different online systems, and it created a load of burnout, and it's kind of felt across, I think, the board for at least my age group, and I'm sure even in your guys' industry, it gets to that same point. You guys had to make some changes with COVID as well, and so I think that's a big part of it.
Especially social life, right? Like not being able to see your friends. That especially any age under 20, any age under 22, it must have been very difficult.
Well, I went through 19 and 20 through COVID.
Yeah, so. See? That's holy cow.
First year, right? First year university.
Yeah, first year was pretty boring. It was pretty much the dorm room first year. Wow. That's where, and then this year, luckily, we got to, I think this year was the first time I live in London, and for school, the first time we even went out for dinner.
That's awesome.
Had lunches or did anything kind of, fun, or went to parties and stuff.
Nice.
Responsibly, obviously.
Dad's here, responsibly.
It's starting to get back on track. So hopefully it all starts to balance out again.
Good. I'm happy for you guys.
However it looks like in the moment, there are better times right around the corner.
Yeah.
Right.
Always. So how do you measure success?
Honestly, my answer. My answer is always the same. I never want to fill out another form or wait in another line ever again. I don't want to do another administrative task for as long as I live. And then that's success.
Wow.
That's honestly
great.
Very different take, but very honest.
Honestly, I want to do what I'm good at, which is being there for the person and being there with people and interacting with people and loving people and motivating people. don't want to be in front of paperwork. I can't do it. I know how to do it. I don't want to do it. And if I ever get a chance to not have to do it, then I will feel so successful.
Good.
Yeah, that's it.
Everyone take notes.
Yes.
As for myself, I think I measure success with the amount of time I have to do the things that I love to do. So I guess I would say time freedom. And so those things are spending time with my family, spending time with my friends. And I'm also driven by that fear. Like, I'm realistic. My parents aren't going to be with us forever. And I wish they would be, but that's not the case, right? So when mom and dad are no longer there, will I be able to sustain myself and my life the way it is now? I don't know, right? So I'm also driven by that fear. I'm like scared. So if I can do whatever it takes now and whatever sacrifices I have to make, I've had to make so many in the last year and a half. And some days I cry about it and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I even here? Right. And then I always have to remind myself of that bigger picture. Like, my parents had their own struggles and they were not the same struggles. You know, it was more of like a language barrier and trying to figure out where to move and where should we raise our kids so that we're in a good neighborhood, right? So we're dealing with different challenges. But I think ultimately, for me to be able to measure that success is how much time I have with my family, because I'm missing it right now, but it's for a bigger picture. And, you know, just it's not about the amount of money that I have. Money grants us opportunities. So I just want the money that I make to be able to give me the time to.
That's what I want, the time.
You know, to go, and if I want to take a trip tomorrow because Bianca and I feel like it, like I want to be able to do that.
Oh, you're taking me on this trip.
There you go.
That's
just in.
So, and I know, Faisal, when we met for lunch about a month ago, you were telling me like you don't work on specific days. And I'm sure when you first started, you were working crazy hours. Yeah. But whatever work you put in granted you the opportunity to now do that. Right. And so I think that's what a lot of us try to achieve. So for me, we just want to be time freedom.
So let me tell you, you guys got to get assistants if you don't already have an assistant.
I have virtual assistants. I have two virtual assistants.
Good. Because that will directly impact your lifestyle and your free time and your income.
It's being able to know what to properly delegate to an assistant, right? That's one of the things. I feel like I got the assistant. I was like, I have no idea what to give you. Like, I don't know what to give you other than. Yeah. How do you navigate that?
So every thought that comes into my mind, it goes to my assistant. That's how I navigate
How
that.
is it? You send her a text message, a voice note?
Absolutely.
How does that happen?
Yeah, constantly. And
that makes sense.
How often do you drive by something and like, oh, this is really good for this client, and then by the time you get your destination, you get caught up, you forget about it. And so those are the little things that I learned very early on, that I don't let any of that go. As soon as I think about it, it gets sent off. I got to purge my brain.
Smart.
At the end of every day, before I sleep, I send a complete list of everything that's been sort of weighing on me, anything that needs to be done, anything that needs to be followed up on. And like, so one of my assistants, Jennifer, she's basically my personal assistant as well. So she takes care of everything, like my appointments and making sure I get to my doctor's appointment, whatever it is, like booking lunches, whatever it is. Like, she's doing everything for me. Even my like personal development side, she's helping me with that. And then you've got, you know, someone that's doing your client services, making sure that they've, you know, and if you've been wondering about something, I just put it in my text message. Actually, it's an email that I'll send, so I'm not waking them up all through the hours. I'll get up at
the hard way?
Yeah, I'll get up at 3. I'll get up at 3 in the morning, or before I go to bed at 2 in the morning. I'll have a bunch of thoughts that I need to get off my plate.
Yeah.
And I'll send them to the. So when they come in the office in the morning, and until recently, at the end of every day, they would send me a task list, which showing what tasks were completed, so that I wouldn't have to keep asking them.
Oh, okay.
So that type of thing. So if you've got a good assistant that is someone who can execute your thoughts and wishes, that's what you need. And that will help you just accelerate your business, because nothing will fall off the desk. It will all get addressed.
People say this a lot. A lot of the most successful business people I know, this is the key component here.
Having an assistant.
So get good at what you do enough that you can just get that assistant, and then you'll get triple good at what you do.
Yeah.
My income doubled the first year. I said to Jennifer, she was working at her first front desk, and I said to her, I may be able to give you 8 to 10 hours a week, So let's start. And she was still in
Small.
school. She's worked 60 hours a week since.
Wow.
Like it has never
Yeah.
been less than that.
Yeah.
She's been with me over 20 years since this guy was born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So there's another thing that, if anyone can take something away from this, I know there's a lot to take away, but get an assistant as soon as you can. How soon did you get an assistant?
Very late. I waited too long. I was already 13 years in the business before I got an assistant.
Wow.
So I was doing everything myself, burning out. And then Yusuf was born. And I'm like, what am I doing all this for? I don't even see my son. So 6 months into him being born,
You're like, that's it.
that's it. And I said to my wife, I said, why don't you go to work? I've got a very flexible schedule. I'm not that busy, and I brought him to the office once. And I asked Jennifer to look after him, and of course she had to change his diapers and everything. Yeah, she still reminds me.
She still reminds me too.
And then I'm like, okay, this is not working. So Nat said, okay, I'll stay home and raise the kids, and you go do your thing. And when you have that support behind you, so it's not just assistant; it's like your whole family support system has got to be there, including these guys. They've got.
Pick a
running
good partner.
around.
Pick a good partner too.
Yeah.
That is
Absolutely.
On the
And
personal
you have
side.
to have, and whether it's a partner or family or somebody that's there to support you, encourage you, motivate you, push you on, that's what's needed.
Well, we'll wrap this up. But before we wrap up, where can our viewers or listeners find you? I know we presented your book earlier, but where can they find you? You talk about social media. So
My Instagram handle is just my first and last name, Faisal Susiwala. My website is homeshack.com. Like Radio Shack. This guy makes fun of me. Says nobody talks about Radio Shack. Does anybody remember what Radio Shack was?
Yeah, I go there all the time.
Yeah. So it's homeshack.com, or my email address is faisal@homeshack.com.
Lovely. Awesome. Well, it was such a treat to have you both here.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
so
us.
much for accepting our invitation
And
to come and join
joining us
us
too, Yusuf.
today.
Thank you. I
Love that.
appreciate you guys having me.
And
this is
thank
a
you
first.
for the gifts as
Or-
well, the books. We have
Very
some
welcome.
here. Faisal very openly came and left some for us. So we have some that we'll be able to share with our viewers and listeners. And we hope to have you here again. We don't know when, but we'll hope to
would
have
love
you
to.
here once more. And thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you. It was a lot of
Thank you
fun.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.